this episode of Chords and Coffee, we are taking a look at a minor blues. Well, what's a minor blues? Well, it's a blues song that has a blues form, but the 1 chord and the 4 chord are minor chords. Now, the turnaround chord, the 5 chord, a lot of times can be a minor chord, but it can also be like a dominant 7 variation. And sometimes it might even have another chord or some kind of movement there. And a great example of this is The Thrill Is Gone, B.B. King. It's a lush arrangement. You got strings, you got some Fender Rhodes, you've got B.B. King, and he's got a wonderful band with him. But really, it's the same progression over and over and over again. And the way that you make that work is you have to have some different chord voicings. You got to have some variations on that theme to keep that thing with breath of life and some blood flowing through it, right? So that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to show you some different ideas to use over a minor blues, and this will work over any minor blues, but let's just stay within the context of The Thrill Is Gone. That way we at least have some form to reference as I'm showing these ideas to you. So let's start with, it's in B minor, so we're going to play B minor 7, just in case you don't know that. Here it comes. This is going to be index finger on the 7th fret from low E to high E, and then you're going to have your ring finger on the 9th fret of the A, and it's B minor 7, right? I'll show you a few other ways to play that here in just a second. Then we got E minor 7, index finger on the 7th fret again. This time, get off that E and let her ring open. And then put your index finger on the A string from the high E string. You're going to have your middle finger on the B string of the 8th fret. And then you're going to have your ring finger on the 9th fret of the D. This is E minor 7. Now, for the turnaround on The Thrill Is Gone, he does something a little different. It's really cool, and this actually comes up in a lot of different songs too. He goes to this G major 7, then to this F sharp dominant 7, or just F sharp 7, right? I'll show you a few different ways to do that. So let's do it this way first. I like doing it like this, and you'll see why. Pinky on the 10th fret of the A, ring finger on the 9th fret of the D, and then index finger on the 7th fret of the G, the B, and the high E. So it makes this G major 7. Which, if you're just looking at that, that's a B minor over G, which should inform the brain of all sorts of opportunities, but we'll circle back around to that. So there's your G major 7. And then here is your F sharp 7. And let's do it this way for now. We're going to have our ring finger on the 9th fret of the A, middle finger on the 8th fret of the D, pinky is going to be on the 9th fret of the G, and then index finger is going to be on the B string of the 7th fret. And then you go back to B minor, or B minor 7. And I'll show you some other activities to do here, but before we leave this part of the neck, another way to do that turnaround, instead of doing this chord here, you could do your G major 7 like this, and then down to your F sharp 7 there. That's nice because that gives a little more movement than this, which this feels like the top is a little static because we're not moving off that note, whereas this, you hear that movement in the top B string there. So what is that? Well, that's going to be index finger on the 10th fret. Now, you could put your 10th fret from the A string to the high E string and bar that. I'm not really doing that because I'm really just only playing that one note. But it wouldn't be wrong to bar it if that feels comfortable to you, okay? So, index finger, A string, 10th fret. Ring finger is going to be on the 12th fret of the D. Middle finger is going to be on the G string of the 11th fret. Pinky is going to be on the 12th fret of the B. G major 7, down to this F sharp 7. This is going to be index finger. Now, I would bar this because I need to catch the A string and the G string. This is going to be on the 9th fret, barring that with the index finger from the A to the high E. I'm going to have my ring finger on the 11th fret of the D, and then pinky is going to be on the B string of the 11th fret also. So you get that great movement. Make sure to have your reverb set to stun. Right? I love that. I love a good splashy reverb. Okay, so then you might be saying, well, Nate, I love you, but what about something down low? That makes sense to me too. Let's do this B minor 7 down here like this. Index finger on the 2nd fret. We're going to go from the A to the high E. We're going to have our middle finger on the 3rd fret of the B. And we're going to have our ring finger on the 4th fret of the D. Now for this E minor chord, let's do an E minor 9 right here. And if you've got a wiggle stick on your guitar, man, a minor 9 chord sort of needs a little shimmy there, doesn't it? Doesn't have to, but man, it just sounds really good. So this is one of my favorite ways to make E minor 9. This is going to be index finger on the A string, bar and all the way across to the high E. You got to make a bar, but you're still going to have your low E open, and then you're going to have your pinky on the 5th fret of the D, and then your middle finger is going to be on the 3rd fret of the B. And if you're paying attention, it's literally like we just played that B minor 7 chord, and then just slid our pinky up here to the 5th fret, and then put the low E in the bass. Which is why that's also an interesting grip. Maybe you don't do that for the whole song. Maybe you just do that like on the 2nd verse or on the 3rd verse or when the first solo comes around. It's nice to have something like that just in your pocket that you can insert into the equation at the right time, right? So that's a nice E minor 9. And you know what, for that matter, if you wanted another way to do that that was a little more down here, because maybe you're like, I really like that E minor 9, but I can't go to here. What about like this? This is going to be middle finger on the 7th fret of the A, index finger on the 5th fret of the D, and then ring finger on the 7th fret of the G, pinky on the 7th fret of the B. Both E's are open. Nice E minor 9 there. The reason that works is because we're in this key of B minor, that F sharp, which is the 5th, that's the 9 in the E minor. So that F sharp, we're just kind of reinforcing that note that feels like, well, it feels good, right? Speaking of F sharp, so now we need to turn it around and get to that 5 chord. But before we do, we got to do the G major 7. So instead of doing it down here or down here, let's do it right here, right? Index finger, 3rd fret of the low E, skipping the A, ring finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the D, pinky's going to be on the 4th fret of the G, middle is going to be on the 3rd fret of the B. And again, if you're paying attention, this is basically a B minor chord with G in the bass. G major 7, the same thing as this guy up here, just different way to voice it. Now I want to show you this. We do a turnaround, since we're down here already, let's do an F sharp 7, but with the sharp 5. So what is that? Well, index finger on the 2nd fret of the low E, skipping the A, middle finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the D. And whenever you skip the A string, especially when you have, like both of these guys are on the 2nd fret, you're going to naturally mute the A just by virtue of those fingers being so close. So you don't have to overthink that, okay? And then you're going to have your ring finger is going to be on the 3rd fret of the G, pinky is going to be on the 3rd fret of the B. It's F sharp 7, sharp 5. Now, something else you can do if you want to kind of be a little extra spicy, you can play that same kind of idea and lay your ring finger down on that 3rd fret of the G and the B, and then put your pinky on the 5th fret of this high E string, a little stretchy. And if you want to like do that, and then take it off and have that your 3rd finger going across the G, the B, and the high E, then to that B minor, you get this little kind of melody in the top strings. Pretty cool, right? All right, so I'm referring back to my sheet here so I don't lose my place. Oh, yeah, let's do this guy here. Same kind of idea as this. But let's do it up here. Right? This is going to be like an F sharp 7, sharp 9. The sharp 9, same thing as a minor 3rd, which is that A. This is going to be middle finger on the 9th fret of the A. Index finger is going to be on the 8th fret of the D. Ring finger is going to be on the 9th fret of the G. Pinky is going to be on the 10th fret of the B. And if you want to lay it down here and get that sharp 5 up there too, so just put your pinky down, bar them on the B and the high E. And then take your pinky off and then lay your ring finger down across all those strings, the G, the B, and the E there on the 9th fret. And then resolve it to that B minor 7. Why do all that? Sometimes it's nice, especially when you're accompanying a soloist, whether that's a vocalist or whether that's an instrumentalist. It's nice to have a little counter melody in the chords, just something simple. You don't want to get in the way of the solo, but if you've got like a little bit of movement in the background, it adds to this sort of orchestrated feel, but it adds to tension moving toward resolution. And when the soloist, instrumental or vocalist, feels that behind them, you don't have to call it out, you just do it. Man, they're going to love it. It's going to give them confidence. It's going to reinforce the melodic content of their solo. And the trick is you got to do that at the right time with discernment. Well, how would I know? Well, the easiest way would be to listen to this song or a lot of songs like it and start to find those little moments like that and go, oh, it could be something exactly like what I just played, or it could be something that sort of rhymes with it, or it could just be something where you detect movement happening in the harmony. And if you pay attention to how that movement is supporting, undergirding, propping up the melody, you'll realize, oh man, that's a really cool idea. And actually it makes for even better accompaniments, somebody that is actually paying attention to that kind of stuff. So that's why you have those things. I promise you, it'll come up and it'll be really cool. Speaking of really cool, let me show you this little moment. If you listen to that Thrill Is Gone, there's a little thing that happens when he's like, the thrill is gone, the thrill is gone away. It happens like every so often where there's like this little, doesn't happen every time, but when it does happen, it's like, ooh, just like I was just saying, it's just a little bit of movement that just kind of undergirds the melody or even kind of refreshes the rhythmic content that's happened, because it just kind of comes and goes, right? Well, what is that? Well, it's super simple. If I'm playing that B minor 7, like we just talked about, I'm going to take my index finger, and I'm just thinking of this as a simple double stop, which is just holding down 2 notes at once. And I'm going to slide from the 7th fret of the D and the G. I'm going to slide up. So I'm really targeting this 9th fret of the D and the G, and then sliding back down to that 7th fret. That's the whole complete idea. So it's, and then on the E, thrill is gone away. I missed it. On the E, it would go. Same idea, right? Well, what is that? Well, that's going to be from so let's call it like the 7th fret of the D, and then with my ring finger, and then on the 8th fret of the B with my middle finger, and I'm sliding up. And when I slide up to that 9th fret of the D, and I hit that ring finger on the 10th fret of the B, and then from there, I slide back down to where I was. Right? It's a nice little move. If you listen to that song, you'll find it in there. But that's a cool thing to do on a minor blues. Just every now and then. And the key is you want to insert it in that pocket of silence that refreshes the groove. Don't do it too much. You do it too much, it becomes a thing. Meaning it's like now it's like part of the riff. And maybe that's what you want. So then there you go. So take all this with a huge grain of salt. So after that, speaking of things that you can do over the E minor, this is something that I love to do in a minor blues. And Lord have mercy, at the right time in the right place, it's just like, yeah, it's really cool. I did a episode on minor major 7 chords. The thumbnail looks like this. I go into depth on exploring this type of idea, but I'm going to give this real quick to you in this context. Get to that E minor. Back to that B minor. What did I just do? Well, so I come up here to the 12th fret. I've got my ring finger on the 14th fret of the D, and then I've got my index finger on the 12th fret of the G, the B, and the high E. And then I'm just going to take my ring finger off, put my middle finger on the 13th fret of the D. Same idea. And then index finger now across the 12th fret, all of them. And then index finger is going to go back to the 11th fret, and then ring finger is going to have to come down and hit the G, the B, and the high E on that 12th fret. Right? So it'd be like, well, thrill is gone. Thrill is gone away. Right? Or you could do it down here. Right? And so what is that? Well, that's going to be index finger on the 7th fret of the A, straight across to the high E. You're going to have my ring finger on the 9th fret of the D. Pinky's going to be on the 9th fret of the G. Middle finger is going to be on the 8th fret of the B. Just a good old-fashioned E minor. But what I'm going to do next, that E minor major 7, I'm going to have my pinky's going to be on the D string of the 9th fret. Now my middle finger is going to move to the 8th fret of the G, and then ring finger is going to be on the 8th fret of the B. And then the middle finger comes off and kind of, joins the human capo effort here on the 7th fret. And then, so I've got basically everything's the same, just the middle finger comes off and capos that, making this E minor 7. And then this E minor 6 is going to be, middle finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the A. I'm going to have my index finger on the 6th fret of the G, and then pinky's going to be on the 8th fret of the B. That's a cool little moment to insert into a minor blues, especially on the 4 chord. It really works on the 4 chord. Could you get it to work on the 1 chord? Probably if you had a pair of vice grips. Just kidding. You'll have to try it. It's one of those things that just try it. Typically, I do that on the 4 chord and the 4 chord only. Now, it's a lot of chords. What scale do you play? Obviously, the B minor pentatonic scale works like a champ, right? Same thing with any minor blues. Whatever the root is, like home, tonic, play that minor pentatonic scale. But something else that you can play is that you can add just one note. And a while ago, when I did that E minor 9, remember that? And I was like, that minor 9 sounds so good. I love minor 9. In fact, I will, unless we're playing like some kind of folk tune or something that's traditional country, I'll just play a straight up minor chord. But anything else, if it's just being pretty and kind of light and airy, man, a minor 9 works great. And in the pentatonic scale, if I add that note, in this case it'd be C sharp. So I'd be playing my normal pentatonic scale, but then when I get to this here on the G string on the 6th fret, I'm going to add that C sharp. And then on the high E on the 9th fret, when I opened this video, I was playing this guitar and I tuned the low E down to a B, which I was surprised but not surprised that this Duesenberg could handle it. I mean, it actually, once I got it dialed in and I tuned my A down to an E. Sometimes I do that, and I would encourage you to try that at home. Well, I don't want to have to work that hard. Well, come on now. The coffee don't pour itself, all right? Sometimes you have to do things just to create kind of a practice environment that's fresh, and all of a sudden new ideas start to bubble up, right? So I tuned my low E down to a B, and I tuned my A down to an E. And I tell you that because that's kind of a way for you to practice sort of a solo jam where you've got some kind of semblance of bass happening, right? And of course, I like to turn up the verb and put a little bit of overdrive on there. But I was kind of noodling around, and I was adding that C sharp a lot. Sounds good to me. I like that minor 9 kind of sound. And I'll give you one more. Same scale, but this time also add that G note. Now, when you add the G note to this equation, essentially what you have is a D major scale. Which makes sense, B minor, D major, same key signature, right? Adding just one of those notes, whether it's the C sharp or the G, makes a huge melodic impact, and especially if you're in a jam and you're playing with some other guitar players, and maybe the person before you comes out and they just shred a beautiful solo. It's primarily B minor pentatonic, and you just need just a little bit different flavor because you don't want to completely go left field, but you need something that puts your mark on there. Try adding those notes, that C sharp or that G, or another way to think about it, I'm adding the 9th of the 1 chord, and I'm adding the minor 3rd of the 4 chord. I don't know which one is better for you, but that's kind of how my brain thinks about it. So that's a lot of information. What questions do you have? A minor blues comes up a lot in the life of a guitar player. Why? Well, because it's a fun thing to jam on. It's funny, a minor blues just always kind of feels good, doesn't it? I love playing a minor blues. And even though it's minor, sad, it just has kind of a swagger to it, If you've got questions about this, or maybe there's something you're like, man, I really wish you would have talked about blah, 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 put blah, blah, blah in the comments. Fill these comments up. Your comments, you hitting the subscribe button, that fuels the fire of these Chords and Coffee episodes that we're brewing up for you every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time, right here on YouTube. We're living life the best we can with a guitar and a a cup of coffee in our hand. I'll see you next week for another Chords and Coffee.